December membership meeting. We're so pleased to have everybody here joining us. We wish we were in person having our normal holiday gathering, but we're going to make the best of it today in the COVID environment. So welcome everybody from the comfort of your office and home. We'll say that we're glad that we have no traffic on the way to a meeting and no pesto chicken. So when we're here, we've got our inspectors panel tonight, which is always a favorite of our members each year. So thanks to everybody who is joining us for this conversation. So the first thing I want to mention, a little bit of a few announcements before we get started here. Just upcoming events for our members. We have our new member orientation that is coming up on Thursday, December 17th at 4 o'clock. While we certainly tag this for new members to learn all about NARI and our chapter and the activities and ways to become involved and the benefits of being a member, it's certainly a great refresher for even if you've been a member for a while. So everyone is welcome to join us for that on the 17th at 4. Please mark your calendar and sign up to participate in that. I'm also excited to announce that we have our annual economic forecast. We've got Kermit Baker, who's with Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies. He is the economic forecast guru for the remodeling industry, so we're always delighted to have him join us. That's going to be Wednesday, January 6th via Zoom at noon. So brown bag lunch at your desk. Mark your calendar to tune in on Zoom and hear from Kermit on January 6th. A couple of housekeeping notes for time. Oh, one more I want to mention also, Peter Feynman continues his mindfulness sessions for our members weekly. So you'll see those come in our e-blast messages. Hopefully you're receiving those. Those are each Wednesday afternoon. They get rave reviews from the participants, so please consider participating in Peter's mindfulness groups. It's housekeeping for today's session. This is a little bit of a different format for us. This is a Zoom webinar. It's our first time doing this. So on your screen, you're really going to be focused on the panelists and the moderator for today's discussion. But of course, we really want to have an interactive dialogue. So there's going to be two tabs at the bottom of your screen. The first is the Q&A tab. That's where today you're going to ask questions of our panelists, our inspectors, and of Justin, our moderator. So if you want to ask a question, you can go ahead and put that in that Q&A. You'll type that in there, or you can raise your hand and Justin or Joanne or Dawn will see you and be able to unmute you so that you can ask your question that way. There's another tab down there, which is our chat tab. And in that tab, you'll find a link to a local charity. So those of you who join us each December for our membership meeting know that we usually have the Marines there collecting toys. This year, in our new virtual environment, we're partnering with a local charity called Project Just Because. And we're hoping that you all will click through the link that's there in that chat window and make an online donation, either a gift card or a toy, for a local child family in need. So when you click through that link, you'll see some gift cards, but you scroll down and you'll see some specific toy requests from children. So while you're here and enjoying the conversation with our inspectors, please do click that link in that chat window for the Project Just Because. And I see that if you can look up at the top, you click on that chat link, you'll see the top, it says Amazon.com, the EM NARI toy drive. And that's in that chat link. So please feel free to click through that and make a donation for that charity partner this holiday. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin Zeller. He's our chapter president. Actually, Justin, coming to the end of the 2 years. I can't believe it, time has flown by. So we're grateful for the 2 years that you've led our organization. Justin is with Red House Design Build. And we're really grateful that you're here moderating the panel for us today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I have missed our in-person meetings greatly, and it is really an honor to help to moderate this event, which has always been one of my favorite events of the year. The opportunity to bring together some inspectors and officials from the state so that we can not only just chat and ask questions with them, but also get to know them a little bit and build some relationship, and also just, honestly, also realize that as we were talking just before the meeting, that we're all really a lot from the same ilk, right? We're coming to this from being contractors and being people who love to build and do things right. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to do that together and all be on the same page. It's also, it's a little disappointing that this year we aren't in person to do the toy drive. It's always been a real joy to see that grow, that pile of toys grow as everybody comes into the meeting. So Michelle, I'm really thankful for you and your team to pull together a link. That's pretty awesome. And so I want to take a minute and I'll introduce the different panelists, and then if you guys wouldn't mind, just give us a brief introduction to yourself and kind of your background and what your day-to-day might look like, and then we'll jump into some questions from the group, or maybe after you guys do introductions, we'll jump into questions. First, we have Tim Fitzgerald, who is Massachusetts Inspections and Massachusetts Submittals. Tim, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks. I've worked as a contractor all my life. I worked for 20 years for the town of Norwell as a building inspector. I retired in 2016, and I work part-time for other venues now, and I do an awful lot of expert witness. I get between failed projects and building inspectors pulling their hair out and try and help the project go a little smoother. So that's what I'm up to today.
Great. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you being here. Jim Kelly, Building Commissioner for the town of Lexington.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I do, I think, join everybody's sentiments when we'd rather be in person and we could see each other. I can only see a few. My background, like Tim, is probably construction's a hobby of mine from since I was a little kid. Believe it or not, I can't even believe myself. I've been doing an inspection work for 20 years as of last August. Grew up in Arlington, but couldn't afford there. I had to move out to Sudbury, so that's where I became an inspector in 2000. And been in Lexington for just about 3 years now. Sort of back to a little more dense area than Sudbury, but back to my roots. I have fantastic staff. Bruce Dempsey, I don't know if you've worked in Lexington in the past, I bet you know Bruce. He's a genius. I'm lucky to have him, and Tom Kennedy, who's just 3 years into the position. Our day is like yours, right? It's very busy. We never know what we're going to come up with. We try to anticipate the surprises, right? That's what we try to do on a plan review, like you do as well. Inspections are our #1 priority, I would have to say. We want to be there. We want to be available to keep everybody moving. So I think we have a pretty good system of doing that. Continuing education never ends, as I see you. If you're a member here, you agree with that. I mean, I could go on, but I look forward to some good questions from all of you, and I appreciate the invitation from Peter.
Jim, thank you very much. And then next up, Peter McLaughlin, Inspector of Buildings for the town of Watertown. Peter, can you introduce yourself a little bit? Thank you again for being here.
Yeah, no problem. I think this is the second time that I've done this. I did one live a couple of years ago, maybe longer than that. But let's see, date. I got a couple of degrees. I got a degree in construction management, bachelor's degree, and I have a master's degree in education. I do a lot of training. I started off, believe it or not, going to the North Bennett Street School when I was a kid to learn how to make furniture, and realized that I wasn't going to make money cutting handcuffed dovetails. So I ended up going and working at Local 33 in the Carpenters Union and going to school at night, and kind of fell into being an inspector. That was, 34 years ago. So I started off in Belmont. I worked there for 8 years, then 23 years in Cambridge. And then I've been the commissioner over in Watertown for 3 years. So my day is like everyone else said, is crazy. I do a lot of training. I train a lot of companies, a lot of big companies for continuing ed. I do, a lot of you have come to my continuing ed classes. I do that. I do construction supervisors classes. So every night I'm either out teaching or on this machine now teaching. So I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we get some good questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. And just a reminder to the members out there, there is the Q&A down at the bottom. You can click on and put questions into that. And Joanne is going to help me to go through questions as they come up. I have, I think one of the real questions of this year, particularly 2020, just to kind of to start off with, obviously, as Peter mentioned, there's a lot of difference with teaching and meetings and in general, but can you guys talk, would you fellas mind talking into a little bit, like what are the, I mean, we know from our side as contractors, some of the difficulties that COVID has produced, even from, protocols we might need to implement on sites and maybe fewer people on site. And but how would you guys say that it's really impacted or affected you in how you carry out the day-to-day? Jim, you want to start?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a question I'd almost give right back to you all. You sort of alluded to it, and we see it. I for one, would find it being very difficult for the contractors, more so than the inspectors, I think. I mean, you're all working in people's homes. You have your employees, you have to protect your homeowners, you have to protect your schedules, you have to meet. So I applaud everybody for trying to manage through that. We tried to assist in that. We tried to be there. We had to and continue to be careful on going into the homes. I'm sure I'm probably speaking things that you've either have seen, agree with, experienced, but sort of triaging the inspection, making sure everybody in the home is healthy, making sure the homeowners understand we may be coming in. The new homes are a little bit easier. Of course, they're usually vacant, and doing all of our personal protection protocol is something, again, everyone has been dealing with, but I do feel as though, I mean, you tell me, I mean, it has to have been much more difficult just scheduling, pure scheduling from a contractor's point of view. Must be difficult. We did put off some final inspections if you had a bathroom or kitchen that was finished. We have yet to get back to some of them. I'm not sure if anybody out there has one in Lexington, but that was just something that we decided could wait. We would go if a contractor had payment issues, we would be happy to deal with a homeowner or find a way to clear the house to get in. And we kind of continue to do that. Although I think we all have to continue to be diligent with that too.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we found is scheduling is tough for contractors, but it's the coordination often between especially during the hardest parts of lockdown and even as cases rise across both. I'm down in Rhode Island for the most part. We've got some work in Southern Mass, but getting the inspectors there at a time that kind of works for them and for the clients and coordinating everybody can be a little tough. Tim, have you or Peter, have you guys done any virtual inspections? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we at the beginning in March and April when it first started, because everyone was just so afraid of going into people's homes. Once we started to learn a little bit more about it and how to protect ourselves and protect others, we stopped. We never shut down. Watertown never stopped. I know some communities stopped. In March and April, we stopped giving new permits out unless they were emergency permits. But anyone who had a permit prior to COVID, we would do their inspections. The other thing too is you asked about what do we miss is I miss the interaction. I miss the interaction at the counter. For contractors, it's really difficult to schedule. It's difficult to do a lot of things, but for building officials, it's brutal because we're getting applications in because everything is through through the internet and online permitting software. And, we don't have that one-on-one where someone can come in with a set of drawings, they're doing an addition, you can go over it with them, you can say you're missing this and this. The next day they come in with that, and then you got everything. Now it's just piecemeal. Everything is piecemeal. You're getting, someone's asking for a certificate of occupancy, right, after a big project, and they need 7 signatures and, 7 different departments, and some departments are in, it's absolutely brutal for us because it's just everything is piecemeal. You don't have that one-on-one, and without the one-on-one, you miss that kind of communication where you can develop a relationship with someone, and you can really develop to say, well, I need this, and if I don't get this, you're not going to get the permit. You'll get it right away, but if you don't have that communication, it just takes so much longer to get everything done. And you look at your desk and you got 18 applications that are incomplete because they're missing things, and it's just brutal. That's what I miss the most.
That's great, Peter. I want to come back to that in a minute, but Tim, what was your thoughts on that?
Well, what I see from the contractors and I have a lot of friends that are contractors and a lot of young guys. I have 2 young sons, one 30, one 32. So I'm in a crowd of, and these guys, one guy gets sick and they lose their crew, and they're all very, very nervous about that. And it's hard to say to a guy, look, you've got 6 strong, strapping guys here that are working, but he might have COVID, so you've got to stop work. And now that relates back to money, back to the homeowner, and it just, as far as the inspector, I've told the guys that for the towns that I work for that I'd be glad to go ahead and do them because I fully mask up. I'm all set. If I want to put on a glove, I'll put on a glove. I'm safe. I'm not taking any chances. It's crazy. I don't know whose house I'm walking into, and they don't know who I am either, other than a town representative. So it's kind of touchy all the way around, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. I appreciate that. We've got a few questions in the chat here. I have one question. Has the state relaxed the requirement to act on building permit applications within 30 days? Has that, with the slowdowns that you guys are talking about with some of the difficulties, how does that requirement, how's that fared?
They haven't relaxed on the 30 days. And you got to remember the 30 days is you have to act on a permit within 30 days. And acting on a permit is a good thing for a contractor to know is, the last thing you want to do is call an inspector and say, you have, it's the 29th day, you need to act. I'll act. And the act is going to be, you're denied. And then the minute it's denied, you have another 30 days to reapply. So you don't want to do that. So they have relaxed some things on our part, like yours too, with continuing ed. We were due, and the guys will tell you, we were due this year, January 1, to have we need 35 hours every 2 years. You need 12 of continuing ed. We need 35, and it was due this January. So they gave us extra time like they're giving you, but they haven't relaxed the 30-day requirement for the permitting.
Okay. All right, good.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I don't think so either.
That's great. And there was, they had another question that kind of follows on that. It says, I know as building officials, you have to do conferences and continuing education for yourself. What's the best way for us as contractors to be aware of the issues that are currently in front of you on an ongoing basis as codes change and other issues for emphasis come to light?
I have good answer for that. I taught many years like Pete, and I still teach. And one of the things I tell my students is, whether you're a believer in the ICC or not, the ICC website has just about everything in construction you could possibly need for reference material. I think the cost is $100 a year to be a member. Any contractor can be a member. I've used that website extensively. You can also go to the BBRS website, and those two will keep you current on what's going around or fairly current on what's going recently in construction. Materials, everything from materials to processes. And that's my take on that stuff.
And the first website that you mentioned, Tim?
Is
What was that?
ICC, International Code Council. They're the ones that write
yeah.
the code. Okay. Just punch in ICC, you can't miss it. They'll be advertising on your computer for years.
That's great.
iccsafe.org.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Don, would you mind just typing that into the chat? That's something folks can kind of copy and paste into their own notepad if they want to. Thank you for that.
And the other thing too is we have local organizations. In the local depending on where the inspector goes. So like your organization, you have your people know when your meetings are. So, we have, now, what is it, Boston?
Semboa and MBCIA.
MBCIA, Massachusetts Builders Inspectors Association. Every month they have a meeting, and that meeting is open to anyone who wants to go with different subjects. You'll have energy, you'll have different kind of subjects with different professionals coming in. You'll get 1 hour of continuing ed, and there's other ones too. All you have to, I don't know them all because we haven't had one in a while because of COVID, but MBCIA is the one that I would go to. I don't know about.
I'd go to Semboa, either one.
Yeah, Semboa is good too.
And the Western Mass has BOWM, they call it BOWM, and they're the organization out there. All three run websites, and all three are as current as each other and as current as the state. We actually keep the state current.
The other thing too is if anyone's looking for credit for continuing ed, you have 3 or 4 really good websites that I'm trying to think of. One is the ICC they've just come out with, I'm on a committee with the ICC, a national committee for tall mass buildings. In the next code cycle, you're going to see, believe it or not, you're going to see 18-story wood frame mass buildings, wood framed 18 stories high and that's coming out in the 2021 code. But ICC has free webinars. The Woodworks is another company that has free 1-hour seminars. What's the company that makes the straps and the joist hangers?
Oh, for goodness sakes, yeah.
Whatever. Simpson has 5 or 6 classes
Yeah.
on using their products that will give you a 1-hour credit for each one. They have a DCS, how to build a deck under those specific guidelines will give you credit for that. So there's a lot of free stuff out there too. You just got to look.
Great. Thank you.
Justin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Jim. Kind of throwing it back to the participants. What would do they have any ideas, comments, suggestions on how the state or the inspectors could reach out to them? I'm with them. We have all those associations, and that's sort of part of our day-to-day work. I would think from a contractor's point of view, it's not day-to-day, you're more on the job. Any ideas or thoughts would be good for us to hear, if any.
Yeah, and I would just suggest any members, if you'd like, feel free to chat, put something in the chat, or you can put it in the questions as well. The,
I believe Bob has a question. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and on that line, one of the things we're seeing is we're seeing more virtual meetings through our organization. Is the state doing anything to allow the contractors to get this education along with you guys at the same time? Are you guys doing any of this virtual education and employing this?
Yeah, absolutely. And the state, Bob, is if you go to mass.gov/BBRS, like Tim was mentioning, you could have right on there, they'll have links to the Simpson seminars and all the other things. There's a whole list of seminars that you can connect to from there. And they're available to you as they're available to us. The only thing that's limited for the state that I know of is when a contractor decides they want to, become a building official, the state has very few classes to pass those 3 exams to become a local inspector. They have them maybe once or twice a year and they fill up fast, and it's usually only the people that are already employed can go to those classes as opposed to someone who's just looking. Not all the time, but a lot of time they're full. That's the only one that I know of that they limit the number. But the free online ones are free for everybody.
great, thanks. Is there somebody else who had their hand raised as well? Roger?
Yeah, I just, to go back to Jim's question, which relates to the question that I put into the Q&A. I think the inspectors sort of are in their own little silo of interaction and information. And as remodelers in our association, we're sort of in our little silo. And it would be great if we could facilitate better communication between the two. So that we're aware of the issues that you're seeing, or as codes change, the things that you guys are talking about. Because what tends to happen, I think, is, you start to focus on an issue and then we find out about it on the job after we've done things, the way they were done under the 2015 IRC or something. And now we're using the 2018 IRC, and an interpretation or a new code sort of gets pointed out, and we're like, oh, okay, next time we'll be sure or we'll correct that or whatever. It just, I think, a vehicle for that is for our association to communicate better with your association and vice versa. And there's the home builders as well. But I think it would just be great to try and have better communication between the organizations, and that'll help disseminate the word, and maybe there'll be less frustration at the desk that, we as contractors didn't know about X. I understand it's our responsibility to know about it, but like Peter said, the communication is always.
Yeah, Roger, what you're saying is exactly, when things change, we usually put posts up at our office. And I'll give you hit it right on the head. One of the things that's changed is the 2015 IECC is now, the concurrency period is over as of, I forget when, maybe the guys can help me. Now we're into the 2018 energy code. So any new permits that come in have to be under the 2018 energy code, not the 15. But the state's still teaching and they're still testing on the 15. So it's so hard to keep up with. But we get emails from Kim Spencer with these out, this is new, this is new. And we usually post them, but now we can't post them because no one comes in, because the offices are closed. So I think you're right. I mean, the communication, there's a break somewhere now because of COVID, and we gotta do a better job at it, because I can only speak for myself. The worst thing, I I don't find any joy in finding a code violation that someone didn't know.
None.
None at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I try to help people the best I can. And, you know, the one thing is, if you don't know because you weren't aware of it and it just changed, you know, it's tough, man. It's tough to keep up with these. And, you know, just like the new requirements for NFPA 101, and, you know, if you're going to have hot work in your life safety plan and all those things that, you know, a year ago, no one knew about. Now you go into Boston, you want to pull a permit and they ask for a life safety plan and you have no idea what they're talking about because no one's ever told you about a life safety plan because it's usually in non-residential applications, but, you know, they can ask for it in any application, anybody can. So it's tough. It is. There's so much to keep up with. I admire you guys because you have the association, you have people that are involved. It's, you know, it's the guys that are on their own, you know, and it's like, where do they go to? I mean, Roger, you have the association. What about the people who don't have the association? How do we get to them? You know, that's the hard part. And you know, it's
Coffee shop.
It's tough.
Well, now with the electronic, you know, everybody files for permits electronically now. Maybe, you know, for every permit you apply for, you have to get one tip or one trick. Here's the new.
Yeah, you're right. But you think the state would say, all right, why doesn't the state take over and say, this is the permitting software every community is going to use. So there's no ambiguity, you know, it's not ambiguous. Everyone has the same format. But now you have some communities that do it this way, some community, and I understand that it's not the state's responsibility. But if I was a contractor, you could have one person in the office all day trying to figure out all this stuff. So it's tough. I don't envy you guys.
Go ahead,
I've
Jim.
been an inspector for 20 years and I go into places taking out building permits and it bedazzles me. And I have to ask for help because some of it's just, you know, I have a major argument that I always say, show me in writing where I have to turn in an electronic permit. It doesn't say I have to do it electronically. I can do it old fashioned if I want. What about an old guy? You know? What would you do, Peter? Do you make them do it? What happens if you got somebody do you have anything in your town that says that you have to do an electronic permit?
No.
Okay.
No.
No, we don't. If I have somebody, and I use a saying a lot of times, never forget the other side of the counter.
Yeah.
And I know, just like Tim said, if I'm helping someone out, I might be in another town, and I look at their application, and I'm like, wow, I don't know where to begin. So we definitely understand that. And you know, we do forget. Days go by. Sometimes we might forget, but we try not to. So I've had people, because we're all electronic, I've actually filled out more or less filled out the electronic version of the application. But, you know, actually, if you do it, I wish we were statewide, one system,
Yes.
electronic. I think that would be terrific. But once you get used to, if you do a lot of in a certain town, you probably get familiar with it. It's not.
Yeah, in Rhode Island, we're pretty fortunate. In some of the towns we're working in Mass, I mean, it's all that one viewpoint. So we have one sign-in for every town in Rhode Island. You have to go to that town's website, but it's still the same username, still same login, same format for everything. There's a few questions that came through from a number of different members. And maybe it'd be really helpful if the three of you can just go through and maybe give us over the last year or so, what are some of the code violations that you found that are new that seem to be catching people off guard? And maybe this is, you know, using this forum as a way to at least get a little bit of a head start on whatever's changed that you're finding just contractors don't seem to know about. That could be really helpful for all of us. Tim, you want to start? You got anything on the tip of your
I'll defer
finger?
to the other two guys because they do more paperwork than I do. Well, they really do. I don't accept the applications at the counter. I come in after that. So I'm either checking the plans for the inspectors or I'm running their inspections. So I really don't take.
I think most of these questions are in the field. What are you guys finding in the field that code changes that are catching contractors off guard?
I think for me, there's still a big disconnect with the energy code.
Oh, yeah.
There's still a huge disconnect. I'm still seeing people doing interior renovations to an exterior wall. The code requires you that if it's an existing condition, you open up the cavity. All you have to do is fill the cavity with insulation. You don't have to use isonine. You don't have to use rigid. You could use fiberglass insulation, which is fine, but you can't use, if it's on an exterior wall, you have to have gasketed plugs. You have to have gasketed plugs on the outside of the wall. Still seeing regular plugs, still trying to explain that to people. Same thing with it's so hard to make someone understand that you need an air barrier, an air seal. And when you do a bathroom over and not, when you put the cleat down and put the tub in, usually 10 years ago, you would stuff that with insulation and call it a day. Now you have to put your insulation, if you're going to use fiberglass, you have to fiberglass it. You put the fiberglass in, and you have to hang your rock and then hang the cleat, then put in the tub. So you're not seeing the insulation. You got to think like you have X-ray vision. You have to have an air seal because of the energy code. They still don't understand about R49 and the ceilings. If it's not a space that has been heated or cooled, unconditioned, and you're going to renovate your attic over, you need an R49 in your ceiling, no matter what your 2x are. If you got 2x8s, that doesn't give you the right to just fill those because you're converting from non-habitable to habitable. So you are unconditioned to conditioned space. So you got to meet the code for new, those are the types of things that people are baffled about, and the other thing for me, anyways, I don't know about the other guys, but fire stopping, and it's my big thing. Using red caulking in a single family house just absolutely makes me insane. If you're renovating a single family house and you don't have an attached garage, why in God's name are inspectors having people use red caulking? Why do you have to, everything around that friggin' hole that you fill with red caulking is going to burn in about 8 seconds, but your little hole is going to be intact. You don't have any ratings. So what happens is when you don't have any ratings, you don't need to, the code is very specific. You don't need fire stopping, you need fire blocking. Fire blocking can be anything. Fire blocking could be thermal fiber, it can be regular insulation. And if you don't have an attached garage, then you don't have any ratings. With no ratings, what happens is everyone's saying, use the red caulking, use the red caulking. Fine, I'll use the red caulking. This is the inspector's fault. And then the next house they build, now they have an attached garage. What do they do between the garage and the house when they got to bring a pipe in that wall? They use the red caulking. Well, the red caulking don't mean shit. It doesn't give you a 1 hour rating. Fire stopping is a system, right? It's met with a system. Whatever you're penetrating has to be protected with a Hilti system, a 3M system. It's got to have a certain amount of thermal fiber, a certain amount of, but these guys are being taught, use the red shit, use the red caulking. And they do that. And then they do it when they don't have to do it. And then when they have to do it because it's required, they do it wrong because the inspectors are telling them just to fill it. It drives me insane.
I hear it. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, it does. It drives me insane because it's a big waste of money. It's a waste of time. And you know what they're doing is they're making someone's house less safe because when they have to do it, they do it wrong. And they look at you and they show you the tube and they say, look, 4 hours. Have they ever read the tube? It says, yeah, 4 hours when installed in accordance with ASTM E84, which requires that to be a system of either 3M or whatever the system is. But they don't know. And they look at you and say, why are you telling me this? All the inspectors say, just fill it with red caulking. And it's like, it's maddening. That's something that is not your fault. It's our fault for teaching people the wrong thing. And that's
Really,
frustrating to me.
really good thing to know. Thanks, Peter. Jim, what about you? Major
I
items
think-
that you see?
I think Peter's right on with that. So, you know, Nari, I suppose is rent remodelers. So for our new commercial buildings, fire stopping is totally misunderstood and totally improperly done.
Mhm.
And as Peter said, it's the same residentially, perhaps, right? So fire stopping is a very, very difficult subject for the contractors, mostly in the commercial world, to understand. No, but I might say both. But they're different. Like Peter said, a home isn't necessarily a fire stopping issue, if you would, like Hilti does. So a couple things, just solar ready zones. If you're doing a new home, you have to provide a solar ready zone on your roof. That's something that took a long time to get that message across. Not that you might be a part of this, but we've had some interesting discussions on the automatic pool covers that some say eliminate the need for a barrier, the old fence around the yard. That's something that I think, frankly, is still a little, for me, I'm very uncomfortable with that, depending on how you read the code. Smoke detectors, we're requiring them to be at least 3 feet away from HVAC supply or exhaust. That's something we see a lot of. Bathroom venting. This is a 2015 mechanical code. More or less, and I mean, I'm going to dumb it down because I think it's easier sometimes. But more or less, the 4-inch vent doesn't usually make the correct diameter for the length of the duct. And then, so we've been making people aware of that. I can't quote you the code, but if you come to Lexington, we're going to probably say, be careful. Usually you're going to go with a 5 or 6-inch duct from your bathroom, insulated, tight, and then where it exhausts, right? There's another mechanical code that vent exhaust should be away from the old soffit vents, if you still use those, and from windows. So that's another, I believe it's a fairly new code that I've heard people say, well, only in Lexington is where you find that, but be careful. I don't know. I can tell you, you will find it in Lexington, but you might find it in Norwell, or I'm not sure. Our values in the basement still catch a lot of the renovators. We're not doing R13 or 15 in the basement wall, fiberglass. We have a lot of foam in Lexington, for good or for bad. That's probably a whole evening of conversation. Protection of eye joists exposed in the basement. They must be protected in some way. That's one, if you miss it, can be a real drag, at the final inspection.
Yeah, that one is a big drag.
And then just a lot of things. What's interesting is that, I can speak for everybody. Even the oldest of codes sometimes fade away and come back again. And even the best of all of us miss things, if you will. So
Yep.
It's a never ending kind of like we were talking about, continuing education. Peter, he's got his work cut out for him tonight with 100 CSLs.
God
And I
bless.
love it. I when that came out, I was raising my hand. I think that's a fantastic thing, because it's just, you have to, and if it has to be forced, I think it's great. And good luck tonight, Peter, with that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Tim, any major code violations you've seen that you think you just want to
Handrails.
sort of communicate with our members?
Handrails, guardrails, they just don't know the extensions, how far they have to go, what size. People use 2x6, 2x4s. I've been repeating that for so long. It's just a mantra. Hi, my name's Tim. How's your handrails? But I'm sure the other gentleman will agree with me. Everybody on a porch uses a 2x6 or a 2x4. Very few people use a real handrail, and to the basement and short steps in houses. It's one of those things. Takes a lot of reading to understand stairs properly.
Yes.
It does.
Those are great. I have another question from one of the members. It says, do you think the state with rising COVID, do you think that the state might waive the in-person requirements for continuing education, just go virtual?
Could be.
For CSLs?
They haven't yet. They had a big problem with that because it used prior to, in the first session, it was you could get all 12 hours online. And there was a lot of administrative staffs out there that knew more than the guy out in the field because they were doing the continuing ed. You know, that's what they found was happening. So they decided 6 and 6. And the reason why they did the 6 and 6, because there was a lot of people not doing the class. There were no learning management systems in place where they didn't have IP addresses and who was going to be at that computer and who was taking it. So there was a lot. So to your point, I don't think so. They'll give you, and they've already done this, they've given extensions, right? They've given you extensions for the time. I don't think they're going to let you do all virtual. I really don't. This weekend, I have a class in, I think I forget how many people, but it's for the 6 hours, for all 6 hours of online. And it's just a matter of, spending the time and to ask, what I started out teaching, and I was doing handrails and guardrails and that kind of stuff. But for over 22 years now teaching, I've had the same people coming, and you've asked, what would you like for training? I'm doing a whole 2 hours on the existing building code, a whole 2 hours on, because the most used code book we have is the existing code book. The existing code book is the most used code, and you're not even tested on it for the CSL. And most contractors don't even have an existing code book. They don't understand level 1 work, level 2 work, level 3 work. That we could have hours upon hours of that. I do a whole nother class on just NFPA 101 and the difference between fire stopping and fire blocking, and how to properly fire. And this doesn't have to be in residential, it can be non-residential. If you have a 2-family and you're going between a 2-family and you have a ceiling, why do I gotta put expensive hi-hats in that cost a lot of money? Well, because now you have a rated assembly. You just can't poke holes in it. So all that stuff is training that. And believe me, think about how many different fire stopping and fire blocking elements there are. You have pipe, plastic, metal, copper. For each one, there's different fire stopping applications. You could go to school for a year and not know all about fire stopping. So there's so many different topics in anyone like me. I like solar ready zones. I'm a commissioner and I just learned something tonight. I got to find out about that. I don't know everything. Look at these books. You think people know everything in here? Why do you think on your license it says you need to have a current copy? No, why is the book? Why don't you have the book is all open book? Why? Because you're not supposed to memorize this stuff. It's not a book to memorize. It's a textbook. When you have a problem, you look stuff up. That's why you need a code book. We all need to get better at this. Trust me, I know. The last thing any of these two guys or me like to say is you need an emergency escape window in here, and little Susie can't have her bedroom until you call, a concrete cutter so you can cut a hole in your foundation for an extra $5,000. That doesn't make my day, So that's where the community, you should have more. You should have this every 6 months, not with just
All
me.
right, we'll see you in 6 months.
Well, it's
Jim,
5:05. I
anything
gotta bolt because I got 5 minutes to get a drink and then start my class.
All right, Peter, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I'd be happy to do it again. Just
Good to see you.
yeah, you two guys.
All
Tell
right.
Roger, good to hear from you, and tell Bruce I said hello.
Will do.
Dempsey. All right.
I will. I
Okay.
will.
All right.
Try to get him
And
on.
this is kind of creepy, but whoever's in the middle seems like she's just been staring at me, smiling the whole time. Kind of
Michelle,
weird,
She's just always smiles.
right? Did you feel the same way?
Yes, I did.
All right, I'll see you guys.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Peter.
you, Peter. We still have 10 more minutes, so if people have questions, we can keep going with Jim and Tim.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, Jim or Tim, if you guys had any input on just in-person learning versus virtual. Do you see any change in that?
Well, personally, I teach about every 6 weeks. I do a course, much like Peter, of continuing ed. And we tried doing one virtually and it didn't work well because we didn't have enough people. And so we're doing them in person. We're doing one in January, and depending on we may have to do it if a lot of people sign up, we may have to do it with the Zoom. We'd rather not. We have some big places that we can use, but it's logistics like everything else, you know. Personally, I'd rather teach it in person because I get to talk to somebody face to face. They get to ask the hard questions. We do a session with, and I teach with another inspector, Paul Spiro, very seasoned gentleman. And we do a session of tell us your coffee shop bull crap. Tell us what you're hearing and that's like Pete was talking about. These guys use red caulking everywhere. It's a default. They know they're not going to get yelled at, except that they're wasting their money. You see what I mean? I mean, they know they can use red caulking on a house because it supersedes. So why change it? Well, that's not the way you do it if you're doing it correctly. That's one item anyway.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I dig right now it's with COVID, it's virtual. It has to be. There's some good things about it. We're all learning more and more about it. The plumbing and gas inspector, Jim Kennedy, Alex Berube, the electrical inspector, Bruce Dempsey, assistant building commissioner. They all teach, and they're all doing the virtual classes, and they're getting used to it. It's not the same, but there's some benefits to it too. You can be home on a class. If you want to learn, you'll learn. So I don't know, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I think we're in a state of flux right now. There'll be some takeaways, hopefully, when this is over, about maybe using both.
I was very lucky in the town that I worked for one thing. That was my entire career of 20 years. But this town, Norwell, did not mind me getting education at all, one iota. I mean, I went places 2 and 3 days, and I didn't have a big budget, but they helped me. And I know guys in towns, big towns, that are not allowed to go anywhere, spend any money. They can't, the town doesn't understand. It stunts their growth. I mean, we are the face of the town for any infrastructure built. My goodness, if we don't know what's going on, who's going to? The contractors certainly do, most of them, or they don't, and we need to correct them. But that's a big, big thing. Education. I'm a big, and all three of you can tell the three of us are education minded. A lot of towns are not like that. The guys just go to work. They're not, they do what they have to for their credit hours. In our monthly meetings, Semboa, MBCIA, and BOEM, all three do educational once a month, and we charge inspectors. It's not free for anybody. It costs $20, $25, an extra $5 if you want to eat. But the public is welcome to come. And over my career, I've had a lot of contractors come down. Semboa does a 3-day educational seminar, a series of classes for 3 days in the spring, and it's really enlightening. And I have a lot of contractors from the South Shore that go to that every year because they can pick up courses on things that they're foggy about, and you get a good solid hour and a half on it by the professionals, by guys who know what they're talking about, or ladies who know what they're talking about. So, you have to search out the education. We do, and the state does not help us. Believe me, they've never. I've been a proponent of self-help from building inspectors for 25 years with the state.
Well, I think
they just don't have the money.
Fortunately, our group, we have a lot of people in our group who are doing the same thing, searching out to education as much as possible.
Yeah.
I have we've got about 10 minutes left. I have a couple other questions I want to pass by you. I have one question on how do you, as inspectors, ensure a deck guardrail meets the 200-pound load requirement?
Well, I'll take a stab at it. I don't do what I've seen an inspector do once, was take a running start and try to tackle my guardrail. I was shocked, thank God it held, he would have got hurt. You know, it's a great question. I've been told on permits that I've approved, inspected, and finished on other people's work that notching a post is not allowed. I don't notch posts, as I would say you shouldn't notch a post anymore. I'm not sure why we notched posts before, and I don't know if anybody's still doing that. We look at the spacing of the posts. If you want to go 12 feet between two 4x4s, that's not going to work. You look at the blocking. You look at the joist size. If you're going to post on a 2x6, you might double think that. You look at the fasteners. We don't measure it, right? That's, I think, somebody's getting at. The same with the guard. See, there's a 200-pound load, and then there's a 50-pound load in the guard area, or vice versa. And that's where Peter's left, but that's where I will tell anybody who's listening, you don't know the code. I don't know the code. I look it up. I know it's here. I try not to memorize it anymore because I've given up on it. So I look everything up, and I encourage contractors to challenge in a professional way, if you will. We don't want to get into the challenging in a mean-spirited way, but we're all in this together, and there's thousands of pages, as Peter alluded to, and Tim knows.
So I like that answer. I mean, you're really talking about looking at the construction assembly as far as making sure that it makes sense with the code requirements. But I appreciate that invitation to contractors, and I've heard that in the past at these panels where, you know, it is refreshing to hear, and some of our team that's in the field doesn't necessarily believe that you guys would say that, but you know, invite you to say, yeah, show me where it is in the book. Where does it say it? How can we interpret it?
Great. That's great information. I had an inspector that for years his students would take my classes, or students would take my classes, and they'd say, this particular guy is making me do this, and I'd say, he can't do that. And they'd say, well, he's making me do it. What am I going to do? And I'd say, ask him where he found it in the code book. Make him show you. He has to show you where he found it and where he's coming from. He has to cite it if you're doing something wrong. And he would say to me at the monthly meetings, stop telling your students to make me prove stuff. And I'd say, stop telling them, this isn't your town, sir. It's everybody's town. And that's a very typical situation that happens.
I don't know that you guys would have an answer to this, but it's certainly an interesting question. One person wrote that typically a 1-year warranty would start on the date of the final inspection. If the final inspection is pushed off by the town, what do you think that does to a 1-year warranty, or to a warranty in general?
I think that'd be a private matter between the warranty and who bought it.
Obviously there's nothing code-wise that's gonna tell us what that is, but I wonder about, is there anything that any legal, any law, or any that you guys know of that would affect that one way or the other?
You know, I'm a dual inspector. I do home inspections too. And home inspections, an inspector is liable for 2 years after he's done an inspection for stuff that he's overlooked. That's extremely penalizing. And to have a contractor build a $400, $500, $700, $2 million house, and he's not responsible for pie, other than what the inspectors grab on him. I mean, to me, that's a little unfair, but that's the way it is.
Well, I think it may have to do with really how you write up your contract too.
Yeah.
When that warranty is enforceable. If you tie it to the final inspection and the inspection gets pushed off, you may need to edit the contract.
Always
Yeah.
a bone of contention there. Yes. Yeah. I've seen it many times as a bone of contention.
Jim?
I would say if anybody has that sort of situation, let the inspector know.
Yeah.
Say, you know, I think I mentioned, you know, if somebody's holding up a payment, we're going to somehow come up with a way to do the inspection. The homeowners can leave the house. You know, if necessary. So, it's funny, I still I put myself, like I said, on the other side of the counter, and I'll go to another town, and I even hesitate to call the building inspector because I'm like, oh, probably should know that. Yeah, but that's the thing we don't lose. We have our phones. So I encourage phone calls, try to call people back. But if somebody's running into that situation, either contractually, try to get that final inspection complete in one way.
That's great. Jim, I appreciate that. I think that's a really good point, just to keep in mind that you guys are there to help us through. I mean, it's really about getting the project completed safely. So thank you for that.
I worked for 20 plus years around the country running big work, and I ran into some real horses tooties of inspectors. I mean, I had long hair at the time. I was a young guy. I was very knowledgeable. I knew what I was doing, and I was doing the right thing, but they lost sight of it just through vision. And when I became an inspector, I walked into my office and I said to my secretaries, everybody that walks through that door is going to be treated like my mother. And if they're not, you're gone. You understand? And I don't expect you to take yelling for anybody. Close the door on them. I'm the inspector. You guys are my secretaries. And we had a great working relationship. And it took about a year for the contractors to find out they couldn't yell at my secretaries or I wouldn't show up. Real simple. You want an inspection, be civil about it. There's nothing that says I have to go if I don't want to. So it's a give and take with you have to remember we were there not too long ago. I was on that side of the counter. Now I'm on this side.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
We've got about 5 minutes left, I think. I have one other technical question from somebody in membership. In regards to the code requirement for providing footing drains in the appropriate soil types, the code asks for a footing drain to be installed either to daylight or mechanically voided. What are your thoughts on accepting a sump pump on an interior of a foundation as an acceptable installation to comport with section R405-1?
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, you struck a nerve. So I came from a community of septic systems, so I didn't have to deal with groundwater. Lexington is not that community. A lot of problems, a lot of sump pumps discharging without any control at all. So we just recently, about a month ago, passed a bylaw. I should know it. I wrote it. Requiring, in engineering, of course, with pumping and infiltration and ways to manage that groundwater. So the question is, yeah, that's what you have to do. If you can't daylight, which is the best thing you can do if you do it safely and on your own property, you have to pump it. And then when you pump it, you have to pump it somewhere. That's where the problem lies in Lexington. And I would imagine it's no different anywhere else. If you're pumping it right outside the back door, you're going to just continue to pump that until the groundwater recedes. And I'm talking groundwater. If you want to talk roof water, that's another place where you should be really careful about collecting that water and where it goes. You don't want it down at the foundation. You want to get it away from the foundation. That's why we have grading issues away from the foundation. But to the point, yeah, no, a sump pump, unfortunately, can even go back further. If you can help it, don't get down that deep into that water level. This is a groundwater situation. If for some reason you are, your sump pump is the only way to take care of it.
Okay.
You
So
know, this is the
you're
first.
fine with accepting the sump pump on the interior of the foundation wall to get that water out.
This is the first code that physically actually says you cannot discharge water from your property onto somebody else's property. You have to maintain it onto your property. It's always intimated. I worked in a septic community for 20 years, and it was hell a lot of the times trying to control the water because you get these tiny little lots that are 5,000, 6,000 square feet, and these people are maxing out with a 4,000 square foot house on the thing, and you got 5 feet on either end. It's hard to say you have to keep it, but now the code says you keep it on your own property, so you've got to do all the underground stuff.
Great. Thank you very much.
Justin,
Yes, sir.
if I may, the person who asked the question, if it's not on the inside, where is it?
I don't know. Vaughn, do you want to take that?
Okay, yes, I sent that. So quite often I find, because I do expert witness work, and quite often we find the only method for voiding the footing drain is an interior sump pump. You know, I've had situations, particularly in Newton, because down in Cold Spring Park, there's a high water table down there. And we've had to put in exterior drain systems that go into a manhole that have a pump system discharging it into a recharge system, because Newton has a bylaw that's since changed. We had to contain at least 15% of the runoff on site. But it's either an interior drain as a footing drain. But the issue that I see with that is that we're increasing the humidity levels and we're decreasing the efficacy of the insulation system on the inside of the home by bringing water and allowing it to come to the inside and pumping it out. A lot of times they don't seal these pumps. So that I see as an issue, and it's, I think, an issue in terms of sustainability for a lot of these homeowners as they're going forward over the coming years. So that's the nature of the question, because there are some inspectors that will allow it. There are some that no, you've got to take and put a mechanical system to the exterior of the building. We don't want to bring water inside. In the code, I don't find anywhere in the code where it delineates where that has to go.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as you all know, I know you know, and water is one of the worst enemies we can have. Knowing my own skylight leaked the other night, which embarrassing to say, but it's a little too low of a slope of a roof. Guilty again. Sorry, but
It's big of you to admit that.
I know.
All right. Well, I appreciate that question, Vaughn, and the answers. I think we are drawing nigh to the end of the evening. I really appreciate the time of both of you and Peter as well for joining us tonight, sharing with our members. Like I say, it really is a highlight of the year to be able to converse face to face with you, and even, you know, Tom Hart had mentioned, does virtual classes, do they actually count as in person? Because it is, as long as you can see the other person, it does feel a little bit like you're in person. So thank you guys for joining us and sharing your thoughts and your experience and your point of view. It's really, really, really helpful for us. Greatly appreciated.
Listen, give anybody, your members, the phone numbers. I know you can call me anytime about anything, and if I can help you, I'll be glad to help you. I just like chatting about the code. I've lived it, I loved it, and I've read it, and I teach it, and it's great. That's what I do. Thank God I like it. And I'm sure Jim's the same way. We get calls all hours of, hey, I don't mean to call you, but hey, it's 9:30 on Sunday night. What the heck are you doing, you know? But I like it, so. You got a
Getting ready
problem?
for Monday morning.
Huh?
Getting ready for Monday morning. That's what I have to call Sunday night. Well, thank you, Tim.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So just a quick reminder to the team, everybody who's on the call, there is the toy drive. So if you scroll back up to the top of the chat, I think you can find the link to the toy drive. Please do give, that helps. It's a hard time of year. It's been a hard year in general. So the more that we can give to young folks and families that are in need, the better for all of us as a community. I want to also just point out we have new member orientation, just a reminder, on December 17th. So any new members or any existing members that want to just have a little bit of a reminder of how EMNARY works and what's important to achieve sort of success and being a part of the group, please feel free to join. You'll be able to find that on the emnary.org website under events. You'll be able to find that. And again, I just want to thank you all and thank all the members for joining tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. See you, Jim.
Pleasure to have you. All right.
Thank you.
Well, to everybody, good night.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.